Okay. It's from Ghost Stories from the Ghost Point of View, Volume 1 out of 3 volumes. And the story is called Her Punishment. So many times, death does not bring relief, release, or reflection. Often, death brings an almost murderous rage to the soul who now finds that he or she has trapped themselves in a hell of their own making. The unsettling facet to this rage is that it can echo out into our dimension, into our own mortal reality with chilling consequences. The energy of this anger is what creates the paranormal anomalies that incite fear and even the most courageous of us. This case takes us into the realm of that tragic, angry place, that place where you have to truly listen before you can help someone. Peace can only come after the person can share his or her story. The frantic call. Late one afternoon, I received a frantic call from a close friend. She was at home with her husband, their son, and their housekeeper, and she begged me to come over immediately. When I inquired as to what was wrong, she said that someone or something utterly unknown was haunting their house, and I had to come over and fix it right now. Wow, okay, I'll be right over, I told her. Funny how sometimes fear can make you feel cold, like you're shivering with cold, but it isn't cold. It's fear. Cold fear, even on a very hot day. The scene I encountered when I let myself in through the open front door was that chill in the air of the family's overwhelming terror. I was a bit astonished to find all four of them huddled in a corner of the living room, watching the center of the room. These are highly educated people, and while they do believe in ghosts, they never expected to actually have one in their home. It's one thing to realize your home may be suddenly haunted. It is much more unnerving to witness this ghost or ghosts tossing small objects through the air like CD cases or moving paintings. This family even felt this ghost whooshing past them with such intensity that they could feel some semblance of a ghost body brush against their bodies. It goes beyond having the hair stand up all over you. The chilling facet of facing a real paranormal nightmare in broad daylight invokes a profound feeling of helplessness and dread, and they all felt it. They all knew they were not collectively crazy. They told me that within the last couple of days, they had each begun to sense that someone was there, but it wasn't too bad. What often happens is that when one person senses a ghost, so does another family member, but neither of them mentions it to anyone else. Each person tries to dismiss it as just an anomaly, something that will pass in time or just go away. But when it doesn't pass or go away, you come face to face with the fact that there's something going on, and that is exactly what happened. I asked them when they began to notice something. For each person, it was a bit different. For the parents and the housekeeper, it was just a little something out of the corner of their eye, a sense of unease, a feeling that someone was there. But then each person wasn't quite sure of it. The vagueness of it allowed them to ignore this entire situation until their son arrived. Once their son Sean came over to spend the evening, everything escalated. This was when they could feel the ghost or ghosts rushing past each of them. However, their son seemed to be the focus of all of this heightened psychic activity. The poor guy had no idea why. He just drove over to visit his parents and have a nice evening with them all. He looked at me in a bewildered way and shrugged his shoulders. He was just as puzzled as the rest of them, standing there, terrified of the unknown, the unseen, but definitely present something. By the time I actually arrived at the house, they were now all experiencing ghostly phenomena. The more they described what had been happening, the more I felt like someone on the other side was trying to get their attention. I could feel the energy of whoever was there, but I knew I needed to begin working quickly. A mountain of murderous rage. I was sitting in the living room by myself. Normally, I don't go to the person's house to remove a ghost. I remote view the house. But since they were so close and they desperately wanted my presence in the house, I agreed to come over. As I began to work, the rest of the family was watching from the hallway. I'm not sure what they thought was going to happen, but I guess they wanted to keep a safe distance away from what must surely have felt like a mini maelstrom. As I looked around, which is a form of remote viewing, and got a sense of things, I immediately noticed two elderly people who had followed the husband home from his medical practice. They were pretty benign, and I was able to quickly move them on. The third ghost, however, caught me completely by surprise. He body slammed me and then grabbed me by my throat. And he grabbed me with such dynamic, terrifying force that I could feel his hands on my throat beginning to crush my windpipe. When you can't breathe, panic immediately begins to set in, and all you want to do is get this person's hands off of your throat so that you can feel fresh air fill your lungs. I completely forgot that my purpose was to try to reason with what is obviously a murderous ghost, but he just wouldn't let go of me. I had my own hands on my throat trying to get him to release me as I was struggling to breathe. The dad was watching me gasp for breath with my hands on my throat. Since he is a physician, he ran for his kit. I realized as I could hear him screaming at me that he was preparing to do a tracheotomy right then and there.
Oh,
Now I'm really shoving fear into blind panic into high gear. I didn't want to die that day myself, but I surely didn't want to have this doctor cut my throat open either. Finally, I got a grip on my own emotions and began to talk to this teenage ghost. Who are you? I asked in as calm a voice as I could muster under these dire circumstances. I have never had a ghost scream at me until this event, but scream he did. Why do you care? No one cares. There's only hate in the world. I'm angry, and I don't know who you think you are or why you're here, but if you think you can dispatch me as quickly as you did those old people, you're dead wrong. I'm not going anywhere. I can feel my friend moving toward me with his scalpel, and I realized that I had to take my power back from this vicious ghost and get him to stop. So I yelled at him with the demanding power in my voice. Tell me your name right now and take your hands off me immediately. You're killing me, I demanded. Amazingly, that startled him enough that he instantly released me. Blessedly, I could feel his cold, icy hands release my throat and feel the reassuring sensation of life-giving air rush back into my lungs. The wide-eyed doctor put his medical things away when I gave him the signal that I could breathe again. Everyone seemed to give a collective sigh of relief. Brian's sad story. My name is Brian Schmidt. Brian Schmidt, the same Brian Schmidt who committed suicide about a year ago? Yes, I am. What made my conversation with him so amazing was that I was talking to him out loud in this room. The family could hear my side of the conversation. Once I took charge of the situation, incredibly, he began to calm down. I then asked him to tell me what happened that caused him to kill himself. I hate my mom. She was divorcing my dad, and it was all her fault. She was the cause of everything. My dad didn't want the divorce, but she went through with it anyway. I watched my dad feel so destroyed, and she was to blame. What a bitch. Ryan, how old were you? I'm 17. He answered me flatly, almost emotionless, as if he did not realize until that moment that he had thrown away the rest of his life. The longer I questioned him, the more he seemed to be replacing his rage with profound despair. In a gentle but firm voice, I asked him to tell me what happened on the day he died. The divorce was becoming final. I had been on the computer that evening, and she came into my room and began screaming at me to get off of it, bitching and moaning that I was on some bad site. I screamed back at her, and we had a huge fight. I hated her so much at that moment. Then she had to go out of the house to deal with some other divorce thing. She finally left me alone. How long had you planned to kill yourself? When did that thought come to you? There's no judgment here. We all simply want to understand what happened inside of you. Although his response was disturbing, chilling to me to my core, he told me the story dispassionately, almost as if he were telling me what he saw someone else do. He seemed disconnected from it all, but gradually elements of the tragedy of his experience began to seep into the feeling of his words. At that moment, I remember feeling rage, a rage that I guess just exploded, and I wanted to punish her for destroying our family. Right after that, she left the house. I was so angry, I wanted her to feel the pain I was feeling, so I decided to kill myself right then. I knew that she would be back pretty soon. Dad wasn't allowed to come to the house, but it was his house too. But she wouldn't let him come here. I planned it so she would be the one to find me. I decided to hang myself in my bedroom. I knew she would come into my room when she got home, so I hung myself from the ceiling fan. I wanted her to see my body. I wanted her to feel the horror of seeing my lifeless body. That was the only way I could make her understand how mad I was at her. I took a deep breath and began to digest what this poor kid had just said. I knew that I had to help him to understand his entire situation. Once you hung yourself, son, do you remember leaving your body? Yeah, hanging yourself is a horrible way to die. I continued on. Once you left your body, did you watch your mom come in and find you? Yeah, I watched. I didn't expect her to call my dad, though. She called him and forced him to come over and see my body. I forgot how bad my dad would feel when he realized I was dead. I had no idea he would see me hanging there. I didn't mean for that to happen, but it was all her fault. I watched him cry. She screamed for a while and then she called 911. I watched them cut me down from the fan and take my body away. I thought I'd feel better dead, but I don't feel any better dead than when I was alive. I thought killing myself would take my rage away. Death doesn't take away the anger and the pain. I'm still furious. Son, I have to ask you, what is your connection to your friend Sean here? Oh, we went to different schools, but we knew each other because our families were friends until my mother ruined everything. I knew his parents were divorced too, but that his dad had remarried. I followed him one day and just hung around watching this crap that was happening to his family. Why do parents fight so much when kids are at school, in high school? I don't know, I said. It's what happens. Tell me, what was it about today that caused everything to accelerate for you, to make such an effort to get everyone's attention? I came to try to get him to understand that even though your parents divorced, killing yourself is not the answer. Oh my God, did you think that Sean was thinking along the same lines? Did you think Sean was planning on killing himself? This was truly a rare situation where I could have a conversation with the ghost out loud. I relayed what Brian was saying so that the family could know what was going on between both Brian and I. Sean is over in the corner shaking his head and telling his family he was not thinking of killing himself. His dad is staring at him in horror. He takes his dad aside to reassure him he was not thinking about suicide. Well, I don't know for sure. And I didn't know for sure, and I wanted to tell him, but he couldn't hear me. And I felt this rage come up again. I knew he was mad at his parents. I guess killing yourself doesn't really solve anything, does it? I could sense that Brian was beginning to allow remorse to enter his heart, and he was feeling the profound tragedy of it all. However, I couldn't understand why he attacked me. I have to understand why you came at me so violently when I only came here to try to help you. What were you thinking when you saw me? I was angry. You look like you were going to try to stop me from convincing Sean over there not to kill himself. Sean had no idea what you were trying to do. You terrified him with your swooping around and making things fly through the house. Now he knows exactly what you were feeling and that you genuinely wanted to help him. Here again, I was glad that I could share this entire conversation. I guess you're right. It sucks to be a ghost. No one hears me. The only way I can get anyone's attention is to move stuff around, and that takes a lot of energy. But then I have lots of energy. Rage gives you energy for a while, and then it just makes you sad inside. I sensed that Brian's rage had begun to dissipate, and that it was finally time to help him cross over. An angel offered his hand, and Brian seemed reluctant to take the bright, welcoming hand that was extended to him. It's all right to take the angel's hand. It's time to cross over and begin to heal. He shook his head and looked like he wanted to cry, but he was fierce in his refusal to give in to tears. It's all right to let go, son. The angel will take you to a place where your broken heart can heal. You'll feel better soon. Do you see the light that's coming for you? Breathe it in. It's all right. You're safe now. Crossing over will help your whole family to heal. He looked at me with tragedy in his eyes and reluctantly took the angel's hand, and then he was gone. I opened my eyes and asked everyone if they were all right. The three of them stared at me with shock on their faces. They each said this was an incredible experience, and they were so glad that they could participate in helping him cross over by asking for help. I know that they joined me in my astonishment at this young man's towering rage. I assured them that their request for help is tremendous for Brian and that service to him will echo out for a long time. The epilogue. When a person who commits suicide finally crosses over, it greatly enables the living family to heal. It is a subtle yet significant difference. Eventually, I felt that Brian was truly sorry for his extreme decision to end his life. It was my prayer for him that he received help in the heaven world to heal all those aching places in his heart. I also sent prayers to his family to facilitate healing for all of them. My friends called me later and said their house was psychically quiet now. Nothing else is flying around. No one was whooshing past them, and they were alone in their house. They also said that they realized how important it is to work out an agreement between former spouses to remain civil at all times for everyone's sake. The reality is that an astonishing number of parents tend to divorce each other when their children are in high school. This is the time in a teenager's life when boys and girls need their parents the most. Yet parents become completely overwhelmed by their own sense of hurt and betrayal and become blind to the catastrophic reaction their behavior is having on their children. Tragically, divorce is love betrayed for children of any age, and its emotional consequences echo out for the rest of everyone's lives. The end of the story.
Wow. So that made me cry.
Maybe it was moving enough.
Wow. Okay, I'm sure that people will need a little bit of time to reflect on that.
Let me add one more thing. Young Sean had 7 friends commit suicide in 1 year.
Wow.
And I actually had to work with him as a grief counselor to help him overcome that staggering level of grief as each person in turn, as each precious teenager took their own life. And so it's a reality right now. And maybe that story might be of some service to others.
Yeah, that's a tremendous thing to have to deal with. To have 7 of your friends commit suicide, and it speaks of a very interesting soul contract.
It does. And this is a good kid. He's a very fine person. And he didn't understand what was happening. And he was really close to his dad. He was super close to his dad's 4th wife. Who, yeah. When they got married, I was there and they said, I do. It was, and all of his ex-wives came to the 4th wedding because the 4th wife was such a peacemaker for all of the parties.
Okay.
A beautiful moment.
Wow. Interesting.